All right, guys, the truck has been sitting for probably about 15 or 16 hours, and I got no drips underneath there. I don't see any signs of oil in there as well. All right, so there's our harmonic balancer, and I think we can actually see along the seal as well. Let's see if I can zoom in. So this is the harmonic balancer, and then we're moving back. So there's the oil pan. There we go, there's the oil pan and the space underneath the harmonic balancer. And then if we move up this way, you can see the where the timing cover is, no drips. And it might take a while. If it's going to start dripping, I'll keep an eye on things. The moral of the story is that, you know, she's not leaking, and that's good. So my only debate now is flushing the radiator. You know, I want to get some of the rust and junk out. And, you know, I did watch a video last night by Chris Fix about super flushing the radiator, where you put a chemical in there and, you know, removes all the scale and the rust. And then he flushed the radiator like 3 or 4 times. And I just don't know if I want to be dumping, you know, a chemical in there and loosen more stuff up. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to do 1 or 2 flushes with distilled water and see how things look, and then take it from there. And then if I think I need to be more intense, I will. But I just don't want to start dumping extreme chemicals on you know, on a new thermostat, new hoses, new water pump, new radiator. You know, hopefully whatever's in there is, you know, is stuck pretty good, for lack of a better term, and not going to come off. So, you know, I don't want to overdo it, for lack of a better term. So I think we're going to do the less obtrusive method first. All right, guys, so I just need to put a reminder in here, if you're new to this stuff, that you never open the radiator cap when the radiator is still warm. You need to let it cool down, because it's going to be under pressure and there's going to be boiling water in there. So if you do that, boiling water is going to shoot out. So for me, it's actually the next day. And I also just want to comment on how I have the thing draining here, and the water really doesn't look that bad. You know, so maybe there was just a little bit of sediment in it. But the old radiator had, you know, there was a petcock with like a little spot where you could put a piece of tubing on, and I didn't show it, but this is the new OEM radiator, and now there's just, you know, a threaded plug with a small valve. So if you open the, you know, you have to open it like 3 turns before the coolant starts coming out. And then if you open it all the way, you know, you can get 5 gallons of coolant to gush out, but you're never going to get the plug back in, so I'd be cautious on that one. But, you know, I tried to do what I did before, and I couldn't fit that under there to catch it. So I'm going to have to just catch it in this pan and, you know, before the pan gets too full, drain it out back into the 1-gallon containers I got the distilled water in. Which just leads me to, you know, I guess it's griping. You know, by designing it a different way, they probably saved a few pennies on that drain plug. And the drain plug is farther, closer, you know, it's closer to the radiator, and it doesn't have that little spout on it. But let's say they're just making a few cents per Cummins they sell. You know what, I'm not even gonna I'm not even gonna go there. All right, I just wanted to show you guys what I'm getting here, and when I initially drained it without removing the plug, you know, there's a very small hole. There's a very small hole in the plug if you look right here. If that's in focus, right where the tip of my finger is, there's a very small hole. That's where the coolant comes out. So that's what I got when it was coming through the small hole. But then what I did when I've got 3 full gallons out, so I just opened the plug all the way, and that's what came out. And then what I did is I just poured maybe a half a gallon through the top of the radiator, and it seems like a lot of that junk just sits in the radiator. So I feel like we're getting some of that junk out of there. All right, guys, I drained out about 3.5 gallons, and this was the first one I drained when I just had the petcock open a little bit, and the 2 down here, I think you can see the color of them. But once I opened it up all the way, you know, you get a lot more sediment out of there. So I'm not saying to open that up right away, but definitely when you're doing this, make sure you open it and flush a lot of that junk out. And I probably ran about a gallon of water, and it was still pretty dark when I was doing this. But let's put the plug back in, put some more water in there, and go for a ride. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and dump some water in. I removed the thermostat. And just watch here, and you'll see the junk bubbling up as I pour the water in. Okay, that's 3 gallons. We should be getting close. So there we go. That's what's in there. Too far. I'm actually going to put the thermostat back in because we need it to seal. But we got to put it in the way they want us to. You know, the water is really not that bad. I mean, it's not like all the particulates are floating in it. So maybe, you know, maybe I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill yet again. But in the Chris Fix video, he did leave the thermostat out, but we need the thermostat as part of our sealing. So we are going to put it back in, preferably not breaking it. If you don't have one of these, get one and keep it in your toolbox, because you will be amazed how often it will save your butt. I mean, I'm sure eventually we would get all these bolts, but the frustration factor is significantly less. There you go, we caught the threads. I believe it is called a drift punch. Just get a set. Okay, let's take her for a ride, and then we'll do lunch. I just opened her right up the second time. It's probably been about an hour since I drove the truck. And it's still pretty brown. So I might give Oversight a call. You know, I think I left the radiator open for a while, so flash rust started, so I'm just getting flash rust out, but I think I might have to escalate to level 2 and hit this with some kind of a cleaner to get the flash rust out, and then rinse it a couple more times, and then get some coolant in there to prevent the corrosion. See what happens. Okay guys, I had a chance to go talk to Oversight, who saved my butt once again, and I just wanted to share a few things. So this is a container of coolant that I drained out probably 2 hours ago, and you can see the rust is still suspended, and it's not like I've got these giant chunks of rust. It's a very fine rust. And if you look at the drain pan here too, I think you can see there's just that very fine rust. So what's happening, I opened the motor up, I took the thermostat out, I did stuff a rag in the upper and lower hoses, but air was getting into the motor for basically a month and a half to 2 months. And then when I finished the job yesterday, I just put distilled water in, straight distilled water. So we're clearly getting flash rust. I feel very confident in saying it's not like there's big chunks of anything in the motor though. It's just this flash rust. And when I took the thermostat out, you could see this very fine rust. You could just wipe it off while it was still wet on the thermostat. So when I spoke to Oversight, the recommendation was to just go ahead and put coolant in it and drive it, for 500 to 600 miles, drive it for a while, let the coolant do its job and inhibit the rust, and then after 500 to 600 miles, just drain the coolant, get rid of it, in an environmentally friendly way, and then go ahead and top it off again with clean coolant. And hopefully the coolant will either inhibit or dissolve, I don't really know which, the flash rust. And I asked Oversight about using a chemical cleaner, and he really didn't recommend it. And there have been other times I talked about chemical cleaners, or I asked about chemical cleaners, and they said they really only use chemical cleaners when it's kind of like a last-ditch effort, when there's clogged passageways, because quite often if you use a chemical cleaner, it'll end up loosening stuff and cause you more trouble than its problems it solves. So short answer: drain out the distilled water and put coolant in the motor, wait 500 to 600 miles, drain it out again, and then just put more fresh coolant in the motor and call it good. Obviously, depending on how things look in 500 to 600 miles. So that's going to bring us to the question which has been plaguing me since the start of this job, which is, what the heck coolant do I use in my 2002, let's do this, in my 2002 Ram Cummins turbo diesel. If only I had the owner's manual. So luckily I do. And I just want to read this paragraph to you. And I want to say again, and I'm sure I put it in the video and you guys noticed, the coolant was green when it came out. I mean, it was clearly green coolant. So, recommended engine coolant for vehicles equipped with inorganic additive technology, IAT coolant, green in color. Use only a high-quality ethylene glycol-based antifreeze coolant with a silicate inhibitor, such as Mopar part number 4267020 or equivalent. I don't think they make Mopar part number 4267020 or equivalent anymore. So when I spoke to Oversight, The answer was basically you use a low silicate coolant, a low silicate green coolant, which is what heavy trucks use. So I went to Napa and I have here Xerox Original Green low silicate formula. So again, I'm not saying this is what you should use in your truck, but I'm saying this is what I'm going to use in my truck. And when I went to the auto supply store in the morning, and other times I've looked, it seems like everybody says to use something called EP.07 coolant, which again, that could be the right answer. I just don't. I guess I should read up on EP.07, but this is low silicate, it's green, so this is what I'm going with. And, meets or exceeds the following industry and engine specifications. So it mentions Cummins, whatever this is, 90T8-4. Again, guys, it's a low silicate IAT coolant. So that's really all I can say. And then the final thing, which I didn't mention, but the last time I took this thermostat off, I could only get one of the bolts to turn to 18 foot-pounds. The other two were turning before 18 foot-pounds of torque, and I got them around 15. So it could be a couple different reasons for that. The first reason is I did use the thread restorer kit on that before I learned from oversight that he doesn't recommend thread restorers for everything because he finds the threads can be loose sometimes. The engine was still warm, so possibly things are a little loose because the engine's warm, so the bolt wasn't torquing down all the way. I also did use some blue Loctite. Maybe there was a lot of blue Loctite in there, giving it some kind of lubrication. Again, that seems silly, but any of those three things, the thing didn't leak, but just, I'm just trying to share with you guys the fun things that happen along these adventures. So, oversight said you could, wrap the bolts in Teflon tape, give it 2 or 3 wraps, just torque it to 15, see if it holds. I might wrap it with Teflon tape and see if I can get it up to 15. And then the answer is, something called a helicoil. If you can't torque it enough where it leaks, the answer is a helicoil. But for where I am in automotive repair, I'm not really sure I would want to install a helicoil, and if I screwed up, it would be a pretty big screw up. So that might be something I farm out if it has to be done. But I guess I just want to say be careful with the thread restorers, and we'll see how we do, maybe when the engine's cooler, things will go a little bit better, and it's a non-issue. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let the truck cool way down, drain out all the water, and then refill the system with the antifreeze I just showed you, and then hopefully that'll be the cooling system, assuming we can get the bolts torqued on the thermostat tight enough that it's not going to be an issue. And then we can either call the job done or go ahead and change the oil. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks.